Uh, I will say, Ranking Member Shu is joining us via WebEx, not FedEx, as I said earlier. Is there anybody else on WebEx joining us? Is it just Representative Shu? Okay, okay. So we're going to go ahead and get started today. We're going to open the hearing on SB 64, and we're going to turn it over to Jason for just a quick overview on SB 64.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, committee. Jason Thompson, Revisor's Office. You have a fairly detailed bill brief that was prepared by our Senate staff person. I'll just hit the high points real quick. Senate Bill 64 adjusts certain internal Capers Act statutory references. It also extends the time for filing administrative appeals, and it updates provisions relating to compliance with federal Internal Revenue Code provisions. The first section is the definition section for capers. There are several internal references that are updated. That's pretty much it. Section 2 is the section pertaining to actions by and against capers. There's a change in subsection 2 that lengthens the time frame for a person aggrieved by an order or decision of the board made without a hearing to make a written request to the board for a hearing. That extension is from 30 days to now, under the bill, 60 days. So that's the changes in section 2. Then section 3 has a couple changes related to federal compliance, essentially. A couple different acts of Congress changed things, and there are a couple of adjustments made on pages 10 and 11 related to those. I won't get into the details because I think your conferees will be able to explain those better. I will note that it becomes effective on July 1st if adopted, and that it comes to you via the Senate, where it passed 40-0. Happy to stand for questions.
Appreciate that. Jason, committee, are there any questions for Jason? Seeing none, thank you, sir. Up next, we're going to call our only proponent today, Alan Conroy, Executive Director of Capers. Alan, welcome to committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Glad to be here. And as the chair noticed, this is probably the only time all session where the Capers Board will appear as a proponent for a bill. This is a bill that was requested by the board. Of course, the board leaves up to the legislature, you all as policymakers, to do any policy on the benefit side, but this is on administrative side. And as Jason has certainly explained very well, really the only sort of substantive change really is that administrative appeal extension. Right now in statute, if somebody, and most of the time, and we get maybe 12-ish a year that might appeal some decision, administrative decision of Capers. And of course, then that appeal goes to the Office of Administrative Hearing Agency. But most of those 12, the vast majority relate to disability benefits, where after we've evaluated, or our third-party administrator on disability benefits recommends either not granting disability benefits or ending the disability payment window. And this just would extend the, right now under current statute, as Jason indicated, it's 30 days. This bill just increases that to 60 days. A lot of those people, of course, that are disabled and they get the sort of negative decision from us, then they have to decide, are they going to represent themselves? Are they going to hire counsel to help take their case to that appeal hearing? And sometimes it's just very difficult for them, I think, to make that decision within that 30-day window. This just allows them another 30 days for a total of 60 days to decide whether or not they want to appeal any decision that Capers has made on the administrative side. And then federal compliance updates, again, to make sure we're IRS tax compliant. Periodically, we have to update our IRS tax compliance statutes in the the Kansas statutes. And so every 3 to 5 years, we just update those to keep us square with the IRS code. Most of these, some of you may be familiar with the Secure 2.0 Act, which deals really with deferred comp and 401k type plans. And there were some treasury regulations, and then there was another federal act relating to IRAs. And again, those were just updates, so we want to mirror those updates. And then there was one technical change. And so I guess the sort of the bottom line is administrative appeal window from 30 to 60 days, and certainly be pleased to respond to questions. And again, this is a board requested bill, so request your favorable consideration at the appropriate time.
Committee, do we have any questions for Alan? Representative Weigel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Alan, for your presentation. I like the bill. It sounds good, but I have one question. How many of these appeals does the Capers board look at, say, in a 12-month time frame?
Yeah, there'd probably be about 12-ish that they would appeal, and the board considers the initial appeal, and then if the board, I think, still confirms with what the staff has recommended, then they issue that official notice to the member, and then the member can go on to that Office of Administrative Appeal, and eventually, if they don't like it there, they can, of course, go on to district court if they want to.
Okay, so not a lot.
No.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Committee, any further questions? Seeing none, thank you so much, Alan. Committee, we do not have any further proponents, neutrals, or opponents on SB 64. Is there anybody that wishes to speak as a proponent, neutral, or opponent? Seeing none, we will go ahead and close the hearing on SB 64 and open the hearing on SB 139, and we'll go back to Jason for a brief explanation.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. Again, Jason Thompson, Revisor's Office. You have another nicely detailed brief from our Senate staffer. Senate Bill 139 is the bill that updates certain definitions, terms, and conditions related to the state banking code. And I see you've got Conferee here that can get into the details, so I will very much just hit the high points here. In Section 1, there's a reference added to the Kansas Administrative Procedure Act to make sure that hearings are conducted in accordance with that act. Section 2, there's just a fixing of an internal reference. Section 3, that's about rules and requirements of the board of directors of a bank or trust company. There's some changes in there about filing oaths and notifying folks of a newly appointed chief executive officer. There's also a change about chief executive officers, presidents, or directors who leave voluntarily or involuntarily relieved from their position, and notice to the commissioner. Section 4 gets into mergers, and there's an amendment in that section that would make void the charter of the bank or trust company that ceases to exist after the merger. Section 5 again deals with administrative hearings. There's an amendment to make clear that those hearings are held in accordance with the Administrative Procedure Act. Section 6 is about unlawfully engaging in banking or trust company business. There's an amendment that creates an exemption from that statute. It would allow federally insured banks with charters from other states or from the federal government to operate in Kansas without the commissioner's approval. So that's the note I have on that one. Section 7 is about contracting for trust services. There's an amendment that removes certain requirements in the application that's made to the commissioner. There's also a provision for reinstatement of those requirements if certain conditions are met. So a bit of a change there about the application for those services. Section 8 is about relocation of a trust office. There's currently a requirement if you're going to move more than 1 mile away. There's some things you have to do. This makes that 10 miles. So from 1 mile to 10 miles. That's the big thing I noted there. And lastly, Section 9 is about state entities establishing or operating trust facilities in Kansas. Currently, out-of-state entities may not establish operations in Kansas unless its state authorizes a Kansas chartered trust company in that state. There's an amendment on page 16 of the bill that's giving the commissioner ability to apply the greater of the requirements under either our banking code or the non-resident trust company's home state code. So there's some provisions there about whichever statute has the greater requirements, and that's what would be imposed. It would take effect on July 1st if adopted. and it comes to you via the Senate Committee on FI&I and passed the Senate 40-0. Happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Jason. Committee, do we have any questions for Jason? Seeing none. Thank you, sir. Okay, our only proponent today is Brock Roller with the OSBC. Brock, welcome to committee, sir.
Thank you, Chairman Hoheisel and members of the committee. I'm Brock Roller, General Counsel for Office of the State Bank Commissioner. I'm pleased to announce that it did pass without any issues in the Senate, and I hope it passes in the House as well. So in going over this bill, the more important sections are actually towards the end. So with your permission, I'd like to go ahead and start on Section 7, which is on page 10. Section 7 through 9 apply to trust companies, but they do not apply to banks. Section 7 amends KSA 9-2107, which allows an originating trustee to transfer fiduciary assets to a contracting trustee. And that is already allowed, but in certain instances, we'd like to be able to allow this to happen without written action from the originating trustee's board of directors or proof of publication in a newspaper. We did amend this statute last year, and we had a trust company come to us and let us know that a publicly traded top 10 by asset size bank wants to transfer trust assets to our Kansas Trust Company. But since they're publicly traded, they're not really wanting to put it in the newspaper, and also to this large bank that's not a big enough transfer to involve their board. So provided less than 50% of the originating trustee's fiduciary assets are transferred, we are okay with not having the originating trustee's board of directors or proof of publication in the newspaper. And this is going to be good for Kansas, since a Kansas Trust Company is going to receive quite a substantial asset transfer. Section 8, we are requesting that we amend the distance in which a commissioner is permitted to waive certain requirements for trust service offices from 1 mile to 10 miles. Again, this does not apply to banks. A lot of trust companies are renting offices in other states, and sometimes they will get maybe 30 days notice from their landlord that they need to exit that particular location. Restricting the relocation to 1 mile, sometimes there just isn't enough real estate that's available to rent in that short time frame. So by changing it from 1 mile to 10 mile when it makes sense, we won't require publication in a newspaper, which that's really what the hang up is it needs to be published in the newspaper for a substantial amount of time before they can go ahead and go through with the transfer. In Section 9, this is actually a matter of fairness. What we're noticing is our trust companies, they operate in multiple states, and they have for many, many years. And when they go to another state, they are facing stricter requirements than what we require in Kansas for a trust company from that state to do business in Kansas. So we already review the out-of-states trust laws to see what they are requiring for our trust companies to make sure there is truly reciprocity. But at the same time, we don't think it's fair that they get to come in and don't pay an application fee, don't have a surety bond, and they just get to walk in. So we would impose the same requirements that that state imposes on our Kansas Trust Company to do business in that state. So it is a matter of apples to apples between the two states. And I do want to mention Section 10 on the repealed statutes. We are requesting repeal of 2 statutes. One is KSA 9-2101, which is a type of trust company we haven't seen in years. We've determined that that particular statute is obsolete. We are requesting a repeal of KSA 16-842. That is outside of the banking code, but I just want to point out that that statute prohibits credit card issues from negotiating with business customers to limit fraud protection, when that's something they can do under federal law. So we are going to repeal that law, and the limit to fraud protection on consumers of $50, that's already cut into federal law. So essentially by repealing this, we're going to make federal law apply. The rest of this changes I don't view as very substantial. I probably wouldn't have brought this before the legislature had we not already had these other statutes to be amended. Some other things I do want to mention, on section 2, actually, that one is a statutory citation change. Sorry, section 3, talking about oaths and changes to CEO, president, or directors. Banks and trust companies are already required to file an oath and give us notice, but what we're really doing is adding a timeline as to when they need to provide it to us. Really hasn't been a huge issue, but we noticed that that could be something that comes up in the future. We won't know about a change in a president until we go to examine them about 18 months later, and that certainly isn't acceptable. Section 4, we are amending that section, or we're requesting an amendment to that, because when a bank gets merged out of existence, they do not need to surrender their charter for, I think it's 10 calendar days. And that actually becomes an issue because the FDIC cannot allow a bank that's no longer in existence to have depository insurance for that time. Their regulations require that the charter is surrendered within 5 calendar days. So what we're going to request is the next business day after the effective date of a merger for that charter to be deemed void. So there's nothing the bank has to do, nothing FDIC has to do. It just makes things easier. And finally, in section 6, for the exemptions for banks and banks and credit unions operating in other states, that is also something that's recognized by federal law. And I routinely get questions from attorneys representing banks that want to do business in Kansas, what they need to do with our office, and it's already covered in federal law. So they can do business in Kansas without our permission. And I just last week had a call about another bank that wants to do business in Kansas, what they need from us, and the answer is nothing. So this would just help reduce the amount of calls that we receive. And with that, Chairman Hoheisel, I'll certainly stand for any questions.
Thank you for that, Brock. Committee, are there any questions for Brock? Representative White.
Thank you, Chairman. Can you flesh out the seemingly arbitrary 10 miles, from 1 mile to 10 miles? Why not 20? Why not 30?
Well, Representative White, that's a really good question. We actually had a trust company that came to us, the only one that would have applied in the last 3 years, and they were fine with 10 miles. It is very arbitrary. 1 mile is too short, but I mean, we could have easily have done 20, but we do like to see applications as to where the location has changed, if it's a substantial change.
If I may. It doesn't have anything to do with newspapers. As you go farther west, the towns get farther apart, and I'm from the west. So 10 miles, if you want to go to the next town, it's 15. It's 20. So that's why I'm asking. It just seems arbitrary. But if there's not a lot of trust companies out there, I get it. So thank you.
Representative Neely.
Maybe I'm misunderstood or misheard, and I'm not against anything this way. Just trying to get it, wrap my head around it. But it said, and our illustrious individual that tells us about this stuff said state banks, or maybe it was trusts, need the charter that's being put in now. Out-of-state banks. Out-of-state banks or trusts need a charter now, but federals do not, and do not need permission from the bank commissioner.
That's correct. Under the Regal-Neal Act, there's no permission that we can, we can't forbid a federal bank from doing business in Kansas.
Okay.
Any further questions? Seeing none, thank you so much, Brock. All right, committee, I will point you to written proponent testimony from Kelly Van Zwol with the Kansas Bankers Association. I show no other proponents, neutrals, or opponents. Is there anybody that wishes to speak as a proponent, neutral, or opponent on SB 139? Seeing none, we will go ahead and close the hearing on SB 139 and move up to our second piece of business today, and that's a presentation from our illustrious insurance commissioner. Commissioner Vicky Schmidt, and proud daughter of South Wichita. Always got to get that plug in.
That is correct. I grew up in South Wichita. It's where my roots were. Haven't lived there since high school, which is just, yesterday. But, and if you believe that. Anyway, thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. Thanks for having me today, and thanks for letting me give you kind of a little update. I know we're well down the road on agendas this year, but I look forward to providing you with an update of what the Kansas Insurance Department has been up to and what we hope to accomplish in this legislative session. I know the sacrifices that it takes to sit in your seats and to do your job, and I just want to say thank you for doing that. It is a sacrifice to your families, to lots of things, to your personal lives, and so thank you very much for serving. Okay, the mission of the Kansas Insurance Department is to regulate, educate, and advocate. As commissioner, it is my goal to efficiently carry out the mission, but also we need to effectively serve Kansans along the way. Thank you to all of you because the legislature has been instrumental in helping me achieve the goals. I'd like to share a few highlights from prior sessions in talking with you before I hit some of the issues surrounding insurance and my approach to solving those problems. Year after year, I've told you that my goal and my priority is to make Kansas a great place to do business. And for me, that starts with running an efficient operation in my office that reduces red tape and prioritizes service. I've talked about it a lot in the past, and some of you remember Senate Bill 37. It was passed in 2021, and it overhauled the entire producer licensing process. And by producer, we mean insurance agents. I'm going to keep bringing this up because we talked to you when we originally introduced a bill about how it was going to reduce revenue to the department. And I am really excited to report to you that as of today, it has reduced revenue coming into the department by $21.5 million. I think it's important for you to know and for your constituents to know that the work you do here has a real impact on their lives. In 2023, you provided flexibility to the department, and so I was able to lower some certain insurance agent and insurance agency license fees. That has reduced our revenue in the department by $1 million. And starting in fiscal year 2022, we put a moratorium on the security fees. When we brought those fees, we were able to reduce those by 50% of what they had been, and that has reduced revenue by $47 million into the securities fee fund. When you add it all up, combined with some of our other measures that we've done, like the live scan machine for fingerprints, we do free CE, fingerprint fees, no work comp assessment, we have reduced the cost of doing business in Kansas by over $75 million since I've taken office. I understand this year that there's even a stronger emphasis on efficiencies, especially in the budget process. I think you could say that I've been doing that before it was cool. We've been doing it since before you've had legislative committees dedicated to it, and even before there was a federal government agency dedicated to it. It is part of my core value as a public servant, and this year's agenda is no different than any other year. We've continued it. So, industry regulation is only a part of the work we do at the department. Another focus is education. We reach out to consumers, industry professionals, law enforcement, and Kansas students. The department participated in 18 outreach events across the state last year. One of my favorite outreach events is the state fair. And, I love meeting and greeting people at the state fair. I am usually there at least every Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And then on Monday, when it's Dillon's Day or Kroger Day, I don't know for sure what it's called. But anyway, it's like Dollar Day or something. And the crowds are just enormous. There's not a assisted motorized thing for anybody to find. They're all rented out. Sometimes I just be the cop at our corner, like, stop, no, you can go now, no, because we've had collisions at our corner. We've also had collisions that knocked over our tables. So It's important. But anyway, I really like that. I think, you know, there's a lot of people that we reach at the state fair that wouldn't normally call us, and they usually think we're an insurance agency and ask us what we're selling. We say everything on our table is free, which then prompts them to take 7 of each. And, you know, it's a good time. But I actually did a hiring at the state fair this year. I saw a gentleman, and his daughter had been an intern for us the previous year. And I said, hey, what's she up to? And he goes, well, she's at the fair right now, and she's kind of looking for another job. And I go, bring her to me. I know her skills. I know what she does, and we have an opening in that department. So, you know, you never know what you're going to do and what you're going to find when you're doing your outreach events. And other things that have happened is State Treasurer Stephen Johnson graciously invited me to moderate a panel at the Women in Money event. We talked about managing and protecting investments all throughout the stages of life. Our department also participated in a great event, which was a combating fraud seminar. It was sponsored by the Kansas Bankers Association and the Kansas State Bank in Ottawa, Kansas. Hundreds of people attended that event, and we were able to talk to them about how to spot fraud and financial scams. Both of these events are just a snapshot of the educational outreach that our department did last year with consumers. We always appreciate the opportunity to partner with anyone that we can to talk about these important issues. We also partnered with KAIA, the Kansas Association of Independent Insurance Agents, to put on free continuing education for insurance agents. In 2024, we provided over 2,100 hours of free continuing education. And last but certainly not least, our Smart Invest KS website and that program has increased our efforts to help educate Kansans about investment fraud. I became a pharmacist many years ago. I became a pharmacist because I wanted to help people. And that's what I get to do every single day in our Consumer Assistance Division. They do tremendous work. It's one of the best kept secrets in Kansas. And I know I've said this before, and I'll keep saying it. I want every Kansan to know the massive amount of resources we have to help people with insurance issues and securities issues. But in the Consumer Assistance Division, it's mainly on the insurance issues. I do think we've made some progress. My first year in 2019, the Consumer Assistance Division recovered $2 million that year. Last year in 2024, we recovered 11.8 million. So I know we're getting out there to people. In addition to these efforts, the Consumer Assistance Division has also assisted many Kansans with the NAIC Life Insurance Policy Locator. That is, if you bought a policy in the, looking at the age here, 80s, 50s, 80s, 40s, whenever you bought a life insurance policy or whenever your parents bought a life insurance policy for you, many of those companies have been sold or bought out, and they change and change and change. This locator can help us trace things back. We traced one back to the 1940s not too long ago, and we're able to see all the places that it had gone. And so it's a great tool for us. After my first year in office, 2019, we helped folks recover 2.5 million. We thought that was a great year. Last year in 2024, we recovered over 26 million. And so year after year, we've put more money back in Kansans' pockets. And our total since I took office is over 145 million. I'm incredibly proud of that number, and we're going to keep at it. And I'm also have a great gratitude toward the staff that work in that area. All of this would not be possible without their work. And in fact, they're kind of blaming me for this in HR, but we had to hire 2 more people to help us with our workload because the calls are coming in more frequently, and the caseload's got too much for individual people. So that's what we're doing. I believe I'm probably the only elected official, including all of you, that says, come to me with your complaints. Let us know what the issues you're having. You know, it breaks my heart if somebody calls us and said, well, I've been working on this issue for 6 months, or, you know, some amount of time, and somebody said I should call you, or I finally remembered I should call you. I thought maybe you could help. please don't wait. Have your constituents give us a call. And you can forward us the information on your constituents. We'll reach out to them. We'll get a hold of them and help them with their issues. I will say that we don't always get the perfect outcome or the outcome that I hope for, but we can't help anyone if we don't know about their issue. I am a firm believer that people deserve answers, and that's, if we're not the right agency for them, we will shuttle them to the right agency. We have contacts that that aren't on Google, that, you know, people try to find somebody to talk to at the Department of Labor or at CMS, and, you know, we have contacts there, so we can do that for them. Now I'd like to take a minute to talk about last year's bill, House Bill 2562. It's the Protect Vulnerable Adults from Financial Exploitation Act. There was no acronym that suited us for that, so I have to say it all the time. We implemented the bill. You passed the bill and put the effective date as July 1st of 2024. Since then, we've had 58 reports involving roughly $1.6 million from those mandated to report under that new statute. 3 cases have been opened by our office for potential violations of the Uniform Securities Act, and I want to let you know that all 58 of those cases, though, have been referred to Adult Protective Services and law enforcement. We don't have a full year of reporting yet, but I think those numbers show just how prevalent the issue is about people taking advantage of vulnerable adults. And I really appreciate you passing the bill. It's made an immediate impact, and we have stopped potentially fraudulent transactions from occurring. Because I can tell you, once those transactions occur on fraudulent activity, you have less than a 7% chance of getting any of your money back. Now I'd like to take some time to, just a little bit of time to talk about some of the bills that we have moving this year in the legislature. One of the biggest things I hear about insurance is affordability. And it's no secret that the insurance industry is not immune from the cost of everything going up. Recently, I had questions about whether the fires in California will impact the rates in Kansas, and the answer to that is not directly. Kansas insurance rates are based on the risk here in Kansas. However, I don't think everyone realizes that we have our own catastrophic events like tornadoes and straight winds and hail and all those things. In 2023, can anybody want to guess the amount of money that insurance companies paid out for storm claims? No, not that much. But thank you, 442 million, which is still a big number. He's used to big numbers in transportation, and so we can't, that's a cost of a bridge. Anyway, there are a variety of factors that go into the cost of insurance, including certainly inflation, the reinsurance market, technology advancements, and unfortunately litigation costs. I am focused on giving Kansans as many tools as we can to help with the rising cost of insurance. This year, the department introduced an insurance savings account bill that will allow Kansans a state tax-free way to save for property and casualty premium and deductible costs. If passed, it would be the first of its kind in the nation. Other states have savings accounts dedicated to disasters, but this one will be much more flexible. And like if you're renting now and you know you're gonna and your goal is to buy a home, you could start putting money away for that premiums and deductibles for that first-time home option. I know that many people are surprised at what it costs when they start looking at a house. It's not only the cost of the house, but insurance, hoses, etc. So there is no doubt that another source of driving up the cost of insurance are bad actors. The goal of these next several proposals are to help stop fraud and illegal activity. They contribute a lot to the cost of insurance. First, we have a proposal that would allow the department to issue civil penalties for insurance fraud. Currently, we don't have that option. We only have criminal. we only have criminal cases, which we refer to the Attorney General's office for prosecution. So we'd like to have that. We would do that in-house, and you know, we have some repeat offenders, and we would like to be able to at least put it on their record, and then if they were a repeat offender, then we would proceed accordingly. Just because you would give, if you would choose to give us authority on the civil penalties, it would not mean that it couldn't be prosecuted criminally. We always have that, we would always have that option. Secondly, one I'm really excited about, well, I'm excited about all of them. Don't tell Eric that I'm not. But the second one is a real-time insurance verification system. How many of you have been hit by an uninsured driver or know someone that's been hit by an uninsured driver? Yeah. So, yeah, and it's painful. So this would serve as a tool to law enforcement, the court system, the Department of Revenue, and others to stop the illegal activity of driving without insurance. Those of us who lawfully pay for our insurance premiums are punished when we're hit by an uninsured driver. This is an amazing, I'm gonna ask you another question on amount. The department did a data call, which means we called all the insurers that write in Kansas, that write auto insurance in Kansas. And we asked them in the calendar years 21 and 22, what did you pay out on uninsured motorist claims? Any guesses what that is? What? Yeah, 51 million. But still, 2 years' time, $51 million is what you guys have, what we, as, you know, as people that have insurance, I'm assuming, what we pay out, you know, because I mean, all of our, it's estimated to be $400 to $500 per insurance policy that we pay extra every year for uninsured motorist things. So, you know, insurance fraud and driving without insurance, they are crimes, and crimes cost all of us, all law-abiding citizens in the cost of our premiums. So anyway, all right, we're going to double down on our efforts to become more efficient. You'll see another proposal that's called like the up to bill, and another one including the elimination of the producer appointment renewal fees, which will lower revenue to the department by another $6.5 million. Since tax cuts are the hot topic this year, we're going to do it too. So the department proposes to reduce the premium taxes from 2% to 1.98%. That will eliminate the amount that comes to the department as just a pass-through agency. We don't need that funding, and we're going to let people keep that. I think you have some folders, maybe, if Eric did his job, right? Where'd Eric go? Oh, he's at the other committee.
The testimony is uploaded on a S drive.
Okay, I thought we passed out some folders with some palm cards. So anyway, we have palm cards that and a copy of our full agenda. I'll make sure we get those to you. I don't know what happened with that.
Commissioner, if you need to fire Eric here in front of the committee, please. It's fine.
And okay, so you will find several helpful things online to help you correspond with us too. But I know Eric, and I shouldn't have to say his last name, Turek, right? You all know Eric, right? And if you don't, raise your hand now and we're going to have a little conversation. No, I'm just kidding. Eric is great, and Eric is happy to answer any of your questions that you have. But bottom line is we're going to continue to recover dollars for hardworking Kansans, and we're going to make Kansas a better place to do business, and we're going to continue to go after those bad actors, and we're going to do it all while reducing fees that come into the insurance department. So, Mr. Chairman, I would turn it over to Eric for questions, but since he dodged out of here to go to another committee, I'm going to have to talk to him.
Yeah, no, like I said, if you need to discipline him in front of the committee, it's fine. So, committee, do we have any questions for the commissioner? Representative Steens.
Thank you, Commissioner Schmidt, for being here today, and thank you, Mr. Chair. So I have a very loaded question. I'm sure you get this a lot. And actually, Eric has helped me some when I've emailed him, because I get a lot of people asking about prior auths, especially with these Medicare Advantage plans. I recognize that as a federal and we're at the state level, but there seems to be a lot of our seniors, especially, that their insurance companies will tell them one thing. And I know we have a complaint file system, but what do you think we can do here more at the state level to ensure like these Medicare Advantage plans are paying what they're, Medicare is approving it, and then the prior auth for, say, a wheelchair. I'm just going to use that as an example. And then these companies are coming, the UHC, like say for instance, just not to pick on them, but one of those kind of Medicare Advantage plans, and they're denying that. And then they make you go through this whole appeals process, and it goes on and on and on. And I hear this from physicians, I hear this from, nurses, from hospitals, all across the board. What do you think we can do here more at the state level, aside from just maybe filing a complaint with CMS? Not that that's not important, but is there any other strategies that you could comment on? Thank you.
Oh, sure. Well, thank you for that question. Medicare Advantage has just blossomed. Over 50% of our Medicare beneficiaries in Kansas now have Medicare Advantage, have chosen Medicare Advantage plans. We have absolutely zero enforcement over them, from advertising to the prior authorization process to any activity they do. We have been speaking to our federal partners, and in fact, in May, the NAIC will go again, and we will talk to our federal partners about that. The thing is that when you hear William Shatner or Joe Namath or whatever celebrity talk about them on in that 30-second or 1-minute soundbite, hey, you can get a gym membership free. You can do this, you can do that, and it's all at no cost to you. Well, people tend to listen to that. What they don't know is that the network is different than in the Medigap plans, and then the Medigap plans, and also the deductibles and the out-of-pocket, if you have an event or an incident, is much different. What we do take the complaints and we do forward them to CMS, and we do have kind of an expedited route into the CMS process. We try to follow up on those claims, and if it's an urgent issue, we definitely, will make sure that we get that in front of somebody at CMS as quickly as possible. What we have suggested this year is, I believe we helped work on a resolution that I believe a couple of House members are, I think, getting ready to present next week, maybe, that urges Congress to put that authority back in the states, or to put that authority in the states, in the state realm. But we've never had Medicare Advantage. Medicare Advantage, since inception, has been with the federal government. It's only been since, we've had issues in the past, but now it's like it's on steroids, because we have over 50% of that population in the Medicare Advantage field. We've had people that live by themselves that have had a total joint done, and they're going home to nobody, and they are getting dismissed out of the rehab, and they can't transfer themselves. They need a nursing home type situation for a couple more weeks just to get them settled and denied. And, I don't know. We've been told, they tell people, well, we'll bring you meals. Well, that'd be great, but I can't get to the door to let you in, and I can't, anyway. So we're working on that, and we are definitely going to, I think Congress is now hearing from a lot of states about the issues that we're having. And I know that filing a complaint with us, when I tell you we can't do anything about it, but move it on. We have been asked by our congressional delegation what kind of complaints and what amount of complaints we're seeing. So I still think filing the complaint with us allows us to have the data about how big the problem is.
Just one quick follow-up. Sorry. Thank you for that
Yeah, no
answer.
problem.
And I appreciate that we're working on that. And I think a resolution was mentioned about that, and I hope we can do something here at the state level for our Kansans. One other quick question I had too was, these seniors get called. I've been with seniors who get called like 15 times in like an hour. It's the most craziest thing I ever have seen. And they'll sign these seniors up on the phone. And some of them obviously have maybe some cognitive issues, or maybe they just want to get rid of that person on the phone, whatever it may be. Is there anything is that still at the federal level? Is there anything that we can do at the state level to prevent that kind of thing from going on?
No call list doesn't apply to them, and it is terrible. And especially if you have somebody that's getting ready to turn 65, their mailbox is flooded and their phone lines are flooded. And how they get everybody's cell phone number, and they just, it's just and it's a constant, it's almost like a harassment. I mean, they're constantly calling, and they make it sound so good that people think, well, I don't have to pay $170, $80, $90 a month from my Medigap. This is going to be free. And why would I ever pay for it then if it's going to be free? Well, because the deductible is a lot higher, and they don't cover, and you have trouble getting coverage sometimes. So, yeah, I wish we could do more.
Yeah, Vice Chair Steens, those are great questions. When you said at the beginning, I'm sure you get this question all the time. That was not the question I think Commissioner gets all the time currently. That's not the one I thought she was going to ask. Representative Weigel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for your presentation. Do you get a lot of complaints from veterans and I was trying to think, my colleague here, we've talked about this. In fact, we've talked about several bills, but from organizations, they call themselves Veterans Care Services or Veteran Service Organizations, but they're not affiliated with like the American Legion or the VFW or Vietnam Vets or anything. Do you get any calls from veterans saying these people are trying to sell me things that I don't need, or I call them on the pretense of what they're advertising, and then they're shifting them to something? Do you see a lot of that?
No.
Really?
I think that those go through the VA system, and people call, people call the VA on things like that if they have complaints about. I can't think of one that, I mean, we could have received one. I don't hear every complaint that comes in, thankfully, but no, I don't, because I mean, I know we would refer that on to the VA system. But usually, you veterans are a little bit of a different tight group that you seem to adore the chain of command, and you just push it up that way instead of calling for outside help. But we'd be happy to do what we could.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any further questions? Seeing none. Commissioner, I am thankful for that legislation you brought last year on protecting vulnerable adults. Thankful for the work of this committee on getting that passed, and I'm glad to hear that it's definitely paying off, and we're working to hold individuals accountable. So thank you so much for your work on that.
Well, I really appreciate you passing it and getting the ball rolling. And again, I want to thank you for your service and the sacrifices that you make. And thank you for sliding in today.
Thank you so much, Commissioner.
Thank you.
All right, committee, one last piece of business today. Minutes were emailed February 27th. For the February 3rd, 5th, 12th, 14th, 17th, and 26th meetings. Are there any adjustments, corrections, objections? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion. Representative Neely. There is no, I will entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the minutes.
Seconded by Representative Steens. Any Discussion on the motion, seeing none. All those in favor, aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Would you like your no vote recorded, Representative Williams? Okay. Committee, we will work final action on the two bills we heard today, SB 64 and SB 139 Monday morning. We'll also have a presentation on the linked deposit loan program. We had some legislation introduced earlier this year. We're not doing an actual bill hearing. That legislation is dead, but we're going to start the discussion because this is something I think we're going to work on over the summer and interim. So we'll start the ball rolling on that discussion Monday. We are adjourned.